Hi, how are you doing? I've definitely had my fair share of faux pas here living in Germany over the past few years, and when I look back, I often have to ask myself, what the hell was I thinking? But as long as we can laugh at ourselves, it's all good, right? In this video, I want to share some things which just should not be done in Germany. So if you're moving here, or if you live here, or you're visiting, hopefully this can save you a bit of pain and a bit of embarrassment. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first part on my list is do not use the wrong terms of address. So when I first moved here, which is now over 10 years ago, it was pretty normal to, when meeting someone the first time in a professional context, it was normal to address them with their surname and a Z. But I'm not sure it's quite that simple anymore. I think things have changed a bit. And I do remember in my second job, which is now about 5 years ago, I was working in a professional context where Z and surname was the norm. We had a lot of visits from head office and other departments. And I remember this one woman who was really very offended when I addressed her with Z and her surname, because she said it made her feel really old and it kind of made me look like I had a stick up my ass. Charming, right? But this, I think, is sort of the tendency in which ways things are going. If you stick to Z and using the surname, you can come across as very kind of stern and strict. I mean, the general rule is if the person is older than you, or if they have a higher senior rank, then you really should Z them until they offer you the do. Number 2 on my list is do not assume that everybody speaks English or that they even want to. So this is really a common misconception, a question that is asked all the time. Do I need to learn German when moving to Germany? And doesn't everyone already speak English? So what's the point? It really depends on where you are living. Yes, in the big cities, a lot of Germans do speak English, but this doesn't necessarily mean that they actually enjoy it or that they really want to do this in their free time. However good you get at a foreign language, it will rarely be as comfortable as speaking your own native tongue. And I can't tell you how many sort of dinners and small events I went to when I first moved here with Germans who could speak English, but they just kept switching into German because I was usually the only sort of English speaker present. And yeah, I did find this annoying. I found it rude, to be honest. It was kind of difficult for me. But on the other hand, I couldn't really complain because I'm in the foreign country. And I do understand how difficult or how sort of unnatural it is to speak to somebody, a friend maybe, in a foreign language when you are used to speaking to them in German the whole time. So the moral of this story is that if you are assuming this, you are setting yourself up for quite a bit of frustration. And the solution is just to learn German. Number 3 on my list is do not, under any circumstances, walk in the bike lane. So there is quite a bit of a cycling etiquette to learn when coming to Germany. Generally, the cities are really quite well equipped. They have quite good infrastructure, a lot of cycle lanes throughout most of the cities, and they are quite well demarcated, but often the pavement is divided between the cycle lane and pedestrian, and it is fairly easy to just wander into the bike lane by mistake. But woe is the man who does this. You will be told in no uncertain terms that this is wrong, and most cyclists have no problem reprimanding you with a rather stern tone that you need to get out of there right away. It can go the other way though, of course. So if you are cycling on the pavement, pedestrians will definitely tell you that this is not the Fahrradweg and that you should really get out of it and cycle on the road. Other rules of cycling are quite similar to driving a car. So obviously you're not allowed to drink and ride. And if you come to a junction with no traffic lights, then the person on the right-hand side has the right of way, which actually reminds me of an incident I had a couple of years ago. I was cycling in the forest. There's a sort of blind corner not far to where I live, and it's very difficult to know who's coming around the corner. Anyway, I was going a little bit too fast, and another cyclist was also coming around the corner very fast, and we ended up just crashing right into each other. And the response of the other guy was to scream and shout at me. I was still lying on the floor at this point and was kind of in shock because it was a pretty physical crash. But he didn't really spend much time wondering how I was. He just wanted my insurance number right away and also wanted to call the police. Now, like I said, I was in shock and I just really wanted to get away from the yelling. So I got up and just sort of hobbled away from him. But he followed me for at least 100 meters down the track, and I just thought, this is not working. I'm not going to get away from him. So I stopped and we had a little discussion, And it then became apparent, I looked down at my bike and saw that the front wheel was completely buckled, totaled, and his bike looked pretty much unscathed. And so at this point, he kind of calmed down a little bit because he saw that actually, if we were going to get insurance and police involved, most likely he was going to be the one that would have to shell out. But anyway, it took me this whole incident to take insurance seriously, which is my next point. Do not forget to buy liability insurance. So Germany, of course, has comprehensive health insurance, which is mandatory, but there are a whole host of other insurances which you can buy. Some of them are advised, some others maybe not so much. But for whatever reason, I just hadn't thought about this whatsoever, and I hadn't bought any other insurance. So do not do this, because liability insurance really does not cost very much, and it will just save you a lot of hassle and potentially a lot of money if you, for example, crash into someone else. The fifth point on my list is do not leave your apartment or house without cash and without a credit card. Now, it's become customary to kind of bitch and bemoan at Germany's death grip on fiscal cash, but this is actually not really so accurate anymore. You know, with the introduction of Apple Pay and Google Pay, there are really quite a few establishments that actually only accept card payments. On the other hand, there are still many places that only accept cash, so you need both. And I remember when I was in Berlin, I think last year in Friedrichshain, I went into a sort of hipster urban coffee place to get a cappuccino and had to pay with cash because they only accepted cash payments. And literally right next to there, adjacent, was a donut place who only accepted card payments. So it's just one of these things where Germany is still in the transitionary period, transitionary phase. And you really do need to have both on you at all times because you never really know what stores are going to accept. Number 6 on my list is to keep right when driving on the Autobahn. I know this is not a reminder to fellow Brits who I'm sure are very well aware that Germany does not drive on the left-hand side of the road. What I mean by this is that ideally in Germany, when driving on the Autobahn, the left-hand lanes are really there for overtaking. And once you've overtaken somebody, you should really drift back into the right lane. There are certain sections of the Autobahn which do not have speed limits, and using this system just really prevents congestion and also accidents. Number 7 is do not go empty-handed when invited over to somebody's house. This could just be me, but I have learned that especially if it's maybe sort of got a more professional context, you don't know the person very well, it's just highly appreciated if you bring a little something with you. It doesn't have to be anything big. Maybe it's a plant or some flowers, a bottle of wine, chocolate, a cake, whatever it is. Even if the thing that you bring is not really, the thing that that person will really appreciate, the gesture goes a long way. Number 8 on my list is that you should not expect to get a kitchen when renting an apartment in Germany. So renting an apartment in Germany often is just that. You just get the bare minimum, the naked walls. At least when I moved into this apartment, there were not even any light bulbs in the light sockets. There was literally nothing. But I was very aware of this issue with kitchens, and I really didn't want to shell out whatever 5,000–6,000 euros for kitchen. So I was only looking for apartments that came with a kitchen included. And this is possible, it's unusual, but there are a few apartments out there which do come with a kitchen. Often what happens when renting an apartment in Germany is that if you have contact with the tenant, or the tenant is sort of tasked with finding a replacement for themselves when they move out, they will try to sell you their kitchen. Really, a stipulation will then be, if you want the apartment, you have to buy the kitchen, otherwise you're not going to get it. So now you know. This was of course a highly personal list of some of the things which I think are important to know when moving or when visiting Germany. If you like this video, you might want to check out this one here where I go into some of my views on German culture. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you as always in the next one. Bye bye.